Welcome to episode number 87 of the KH-Vids Podcast. This week we are doing another special Spoilercast, this time on the Order 1886. So with us today you have another intimate podcast. You have your usual hosts of me, Misty.
And me, Bridgie KD.
And me, Kalaxon.
And nobody else. We do have a legitimate excuse this time in that none of the guests that we approached had played the Order 1886, and so they couldn't really be a guest on a Spoilercast for that reason. But, you know, we'll make do with who we have today. So usually we go into Kingdom Hearts news and updates. Unfortunately, there are none this week, and that is not unlike most weeks.
It's probably going to be the same next week.
Yeah.
The week after that.
Yep, we're
Square did actually announce quite a bit this week.
It's really crazy, because, like, they announced Deus Ex, they have
I'm so excited for that.
Star teaser that's going on, which is probably Star Ocean, and then, of course, the Dissidia game, which we have a user-submitted question about the Dissidia game, so we'll talk about that towards the end of the podcast. But if you're unfamiliar with the idea of Spoilercasts, basically what they are is we name a game or a movie or something like that, and we do an episode about them, not worrying about spoilers. So if you have not played the Order 1886, but you intend to, and you would not like to be spoiled, maybe just skip to the end of the episode, go to the user-submitted questions. I'll include the timestamp in the podcast description, so you can just, skip along and be on your merry way. But if you have played the Order 1886, or you just don't care about being spoiled for it, have a listen to the episode.
It's gonna be fun, I promise.
Yeah, it will be. So the Order was released in February this year as a PlayStation 4 exclusive by Ready at Dawn. Ready at Dawn is kind of a new developer. I think that their previous credits just include a PSP God of War title. And so it was kind of a weird developer to be matched up with what turns out to be a pretty huge PlayStation exclusive. And the game was pretty considerably hyped by Sony and admittedly me on this very podcast because I was really excited for it. And we'll get into whether that game lived up to my excitement and hype and whether it disappointed me, because it did a little. So we'll start out by just saying, what are your initial thoughts on the game as a whole? Were you excited for it pre-release, and in Cal's place, did you play it? And that kind of thing. So initial thoughts on the game.
Going into it, I guess you can say I was excited for it. I was really interested from its reveal because I just really liked the entire setting, and that's basically the main appeal for me. It was the setting and just kind of the character designs and just kind of sort of lore. I'm a fan of Arthurian lore, and kind of seeing it, I guess, not so much modernized, but brought out of Middle Ages type area into a more kind of industrial age was kind of intriguing note to me. Mm-hmm. So I would say I was kind of looking forward to it, and I enjoyed it when it came out.
And Cal, you want to let us know why you were perhaps not interested in the game? I mean, I don't think you have a PS4, so that's...
Yeah,
that would be a big reason.
Yeah.
So, there you go.
Yep. Okay. Well, I was into it for similar reasons to Nick. After the first E3 reveal trailer, I think it was 2013 that it was revealed with the PlayStation 4. I was pretty interested in it for the setting and for the characters, and because it was going to be a very narrative-driven game, which is what I like. So I did follow the game through its development cycle, and I read all the articles and looked at all the screenshots and everything, and I paid a hell of a lot of money for the game because I got one of the, collector's editions, or I don't remember if it was the collector's or the premium, whichever it was called, but I paid $80 for this thing. I paid 80 smackaroos for it, and, so, I have mixed feelings about what we actually got, and we'll get into that, but I was really excited for this game, and if you've listened to the podcast for a long time, you know that I was really excited for this game, and yeah, it didn't really pan out as I was hoping. But I mean, like the side, I enjoyed the game. The length was a huge issue with the game, and it's something that we're going to get into, but I did enjoy the game. I don't have overall negative feelings about the game. They're borderline positive.
Yeah, I think it's a good game.
Yeah, I thought the gameplay was fun, if somewhat uninspired, even if, like, the arc gun and the thermite rifle kind of shone through that. I wish we got to spend more time with them, but they were cool and they were original, and the Lycan fights were terrible, and I can't believe that somebody played that and said, yeah, this is okay, let's ship this. But
I mean, the Lycan fights are very much, they're QTE battles.
no, I'm not talking about the QTE battles. I'm talking about the ones where you stand in the corner and wait for the Lycan to run at you and then roll out of the way and shoot at it and then roll out of the way and shoot at those.
Yeah, those were
ridiculous. There was no excuse in 2015 for a fight like that.
There are ways where you could not roll out of the way, and because it depends. It's a situational thing depending on what gun you have. Because
yeah, and like just kind of how you approach the situation.
Yeah, that was
altogether.
just kind of those were kind of annoying little fights.
Both times that I played the game, it ended with me standing in the corner and waiting for them to run at me. Yeah, but the story, it was good. It was a good story. It wasn't great. It was somewhat disappointing for me because I wanted it to be great, and the ending had its problems, and the character and the world building had its problems, the pacing had its problems, but I do have overall positive feelings about the game. And I actually feel kind of alone in that. I mean, I know Nick is of similar opinion, but the game has gotten so much negative press, especially in that, like, week before its release, that I feel weird even saying good things about The Order 1886.
The Order, if we're just going to talk about press for The Order, well before its kind of release, I kind of knew that the press weren't going to enjoy the game. Just from the fact some press sites, like a month or two before the game was released, they're already telling people not to buy it. So the kind of the critical response that game received didn't surprise me that much.
I'm not going to say that it surprised me because a lot of it, what was going on with it, seemed like a lot of clickbait to me, and that, of course, is, like, central to video game news and video game quote-unquote journalism. So I wasn't, like, surprised to see it. I was just really disappointed that everybody seemed so eager to jump on the Order 1886 hate train.
Yeah, this isn't the first game that I've enjoyed that has gotten less than stellar reviews. You just kind of learned, like, whatever. You just got to find that group of people who do like it.
Yeah.
And then talk with them, and then you're like, oh, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, the thing about, if we're talking about the reviews and previews and stuff like that, is that they had legitimate criticism regarding the game. I do think that they were, I don't want to say overly harsh because that sounds weird, but I do feel that they just kind of didn't care, I think would be a better way to put it.
How do you mean?
Like, they didn't really care about the game. So they just did like a review of it, and then it was like, okay, it's done. Who cares? It wasn't anything great, but
It felt a lot to me that a lot of people were rooting for it to flop. For whatever reason, I think that part of it was just that the game was so hyped by Sony that a lot of people's natural reaction to that is to say, like, oh, it's gonna suck, because being cynical is cool today. And so I think that a lot of people, when they were looking at it, they were already going into it with a really, like, bad mindset, and so the problems that the game had were just expounded by that, and they made them out to be pretty bad. And yeah, a lot of it too is this issue that we have with video game reviews, that people review everything, and they feel obligated to review everything, and therefore you get a lot of people that are kind of apathetic to maybe the game, or even to the genre, or what the game is trying to succeed, and they want it to be something that it's not. And that, a lot of people were looking for some, like, 30-hour experience out of the Order 1886, but that's never what was promised by Ready at Dawn, and that's never really what I expected from Ready at Dawn. So I did think that was somewhat unfair. That Ready at Dawn clearly made a conscious, you don't put out a 12-hour game accidentally. Like, that doesn't just happen. They clearly made the decision for it to be a short game with a very focused plot line and, not a lot of extras. And whether that decision was right or wrong, that's up to you to decide, but you can't, decry it for not being what you expected, sort of. And I'm guilty of it too, that I expected a lot out of this game, and a lot of my disappointments are centered around those expectations, but I do have to keep in mind that those were expectations that I formulated in ignorance in a way, because you can't do anything else before a game has come out.
I mean, the disappointment, at least from what I've talked to you about with the game, it was disappointment in things that they said that they were hoping to do.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like as you said, it's not, the length is a disappointment, but it isn't the fact that it's a short game.
Or even a cinematic game. I have, on my list of, like, things wrong with the Order 1886, I'm going to mention the length, and I'm going to mention that it was maybe a little bit more balanced in the cinematic favor than the gameplay in the gameplay way. But, that alone does not bother me, because that's just me as a gamer. I don't really care if something is cinematic, because I'm not playing games to play games, and I realize that makes me a minority. I play games for story, and I freely admit that multiple times, that I don't care if the gameplay is shitty. If it's an amazing story, I will play it and love it.
Yeah, but what I was getting at, it isn't that it's a short game that is the problem. It is that it didn't do enough in the time that it had.
Exactly. That it actually, it felt kind of long in some areas, that they were spending time on things that I didn't really think they needed to spend time on, when they could have used that time to do other things. And that's kind of getting into my next question, which is, like, your favorite part of the game and your favorite characters. That a lot of the characters, I would argue every character, wasn't really fleshed out in a satisfactory way. And that really hurt the game, because as a game that's really focused on narrative and on its characters, you want to have a reason to care about the characters, and you want to get to know the characters, and you want those characters to be built, and you want that world to be built, because that is another thing that we said, a lot of people, including us, bought into the game for, the setting. It's such a cool setting. There's so much cool lore going on there that you wanted to see it kind of built and explored and explained, and you didn't have that with either the lore or the characters. And I wish that they spent some of the time in the game on that.
Yeah, because, like, the characters, there are characters in there that I actually really like, and I would have loved to see them get more development or even just more screen time. I actually really enjoy the entirety of the kind of Galahad squad of people. I enjoyed Galahad, I enjoyed Igraine, and I enjoyed Lafayette and Percival, but they didn't get enough time, I feel, because you get to see them, and you see them interact, and you see, them talking and all this other stuff, and you sort of get hints at things between certain characters, such as Galahad and Igraine, but it really isn't expanded on at all from that point.
Yeah, I don't think that the characters spent enough time together. Even just, like, the squad as itself or individual. Like, I wanted to see, Galahad and Percival alone and see how their dynamic is different from, like, Galahad and Lafayette together. And
that's something we didn't get with Galahad and Percival, because we had a section with him and Lafayette, Galahad and Lafayette, and we had a section with him and Igraine.
Yeah, but never with Percival, which is really sad, because there was a lot going on with Percival, and, I mean, this is a spoiler cast, so we can say that Percival dies, like, maybe midway through the game. And, he does fall into that category of video game characters that say, like, oh, I'll tell you after this is all over, and then he dies. And
like that
happens in, like,
anybody
a
says
lot
that
of games.
In anything.
Yeah. They're gone soon.
Oh, well, fine. I guess I'm not going to use you anymore.
Yeah.
Or not going to see you around anymore.
But I did want to see what that relationship was between Galahad and Percival, because Percival was such an interesting figure that, he was somebody that had routinely, kind of defied the council, and that was absolutely instrumental in what Galahad later does in the game.
Because and not only that, out of the 4 squad mates, Lafayette is obviously the newbie of the group, but Galahad and Percival were the 2 oldest of the order, I guess you can say, and they've made hints at like, this wasn't how things aren't how they used to be, or things have changed, or just alluding to something about how
flashbacks.
The order.
I wanted them to show and not tell, which is something that, if you've done any kind of writing or storytelling, that's like the first thing that you're told. Show, don't tell. And the Order told you a lot of things. It didn't show you enough things.
I feel a lot of the stuff they were doing is they wanted to be vague. I feel that was a conscious decision to be vague about certain things. But given how those ideas aren't expanded on at all later in the game, it didn't feel right.
Yeah.
Like,
and I mean, there is always... Go ahead.
like if you just had the game how it is right now, and you added, let's just say, an arbitrary, like, another 3 3 hours worth of content that kind of expanded upon like either the past or the characters or just anything like that, it would have been fine. Like, I mean, it wouldn't even have to be entirely gameplay focused. It could have been something that was like bits and pieces that were interspersed into the current content.
Right. Where
it kind of just gives these characters more life to them and the setting more life to them. Because one of the things I actually kind of really like, one of the collectibles that you kind of go throughout the game, there are shocking audio disc type things. There's also newspaper clippings. And the newspaper clippings in particular were interesting because they were kind of detailing the kind of the exploits of Jack the Ripper.
Yeah.
And as it turns out, you meet him and he is a vampire. But and it's like having those little bits of news articles kind of piecing together that particular part of the story.
That was really good. I felt like the Jack the Ripper thing was handled really well. Especially, I mean, not just that Jack the Ripper is, you mentioned Jack, everybody knows who Jack the Ripper is. So, of course it's going to have that novelty factor and people are coming in it with pre-existing expectations, and to kind of twist that by like saying like, oh, he's a vampire. That was cool. And having the newspapers do that. And I wish that they had just done that to a greater extent with more elements of the world.
Because some, like, even, like, the few audio things you get, sometimes they aren't entirely important.
I played the second time that I played through the game, I played it with somebody else, and he, like, tried to pick up the audio things, and we were just kind of playing it as a thing to do. We weren't trying to go, like, completionist for it. And he's like, do I have to, like, put a lot of effort into listening to these and looking for them? I'm like, no. You're not missing anything.
Yeah, but like there's a few bits and pieces of that, and as well as other collectibles that you get, that you kind of get this. You get a sense of what this, I guess, force that you're fighting against is trying to do.
Yes.
Like throughout like shipping manifest and audio things, you get the sense of the enemy, which they're just half-breeds.
Yeah.
You get a sense that what they're trying to do is bring over half-breeds into America and kind of extend their influence there because they aren't present in America yet.
Yeah.
So you do get little bits and pieces of that, which, I mean, I wish there was more of that.
Yeah, I wish there was more of that centered around the characters, because what I felt was really missing from the narrative was that emotional pull, that I didn't feel super dedicated to the characters. That, like when Percival died, I wasn't sad because Percival died. I was sad because now I'm not going to know, like, all the things he was withholding.
Especially, okay, this is something that really bugged me in the game. That person Percival talks to.
Oh, man.
So you see Percival, I think only 2 times throughout the game, where Galahad sort of looking around and he sees Percival talking to this
like hooded
figure. And then later on in the game, after kind of goes down, and you're kind of exiled from the order that you're in, you see him sort of rescue you from your kind of fate of death. And that's about it. We got a better look at his face than when the developers put up art renders of him than we do in the game.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating because we have no idea about who this character is or what he does or what his things are. It's just,
that was part of my problem with the characters too, that as someone that like followed the game through its development cycle and read a lot of articles, they gave backgrounds on some of the characters, and that was completely absent in the game. So I can't even imagine, because I knew this stuff going into it, but somebody that had just like cold picked up the game, they did not know these things. And I felt that they did add something to, what I felt while I was playing the game, but it was just so absent, and I didn't understand how they could do that.
Like, one of the things that you got really excited for was the sort of romance between...
Who didn't get excited for that?
The romance between Igraine and Galahad, and how it's kind of a forbidden little thing between members of the Order.
Totally not there in the game.
It's there somewhat.
Yeah.
Particularly when in the
hospital scene, and then that one time where she like kind of alludes to marriage. But otherwise, totally not there. And
I mean, you can. I mean, if you're looking at it and you have no idea of that, you can tell she's flirting.
There. Yeah.
She's flirting with.
It's
really obvious.
Yeah, but the fact that there is this backstory there, and that there is that thought there, and they clearly, you know, they know what's going on. They have more information than what they're presenting, and that's fine. You know, you always have more in your head than what you give to the reader, or the viewer, or the player. And that's okay, but you got to put something in there.
Yeah, because that little bit in the hospital when
it wasn't enough.
Because I mean, she talks about how they should kind of she can't keep doing this. We should kind of just be together and live.
And that to me was the best part of the game, and that's sad because it was not only pretty early in the game, but that, you know, naming your best part as early in the game, everything else just kind of seems like whatever after that. And it's sad to me because that was when the game really struck a good balance between like atmosphere and story. It played on some of the promised like horror elements because, you know, you were creeping through the hospital basement. You didn't really know what you were going to find there. The Lycans come out, and I think that's actually the first time that you fight the Lycans, so that was exciting. There was suspense, and you got to develop that relationship between Igraine and Galahad. When Igraine was injured, you like kind of you felt for her. You were worried about her, and that was kind of the only time I ever felt that in the game.
Yeah, I mean, there immediately after that you go on the Agamemnon, and you know, stuff happens there. But after that, Galahad is kind of on his own, with the exception of Chapter 9 when he's with the rebel.
But that was part of the problem too, that Galahad never spent enough time alone with the squad, and we kind of said that before, but, you know, having Galahad and Igraine alone, it let them kind of drop the filter of, you know, knighthood and, you know, be each other and talk to each other as each other. And I can only think of one other scene in which that happened, which was towards the end when Galahad has like left the knights already, and he sees Lafayette in the like brothel, and they kind of have a short conversation there. That was the only other time.
That was one of my other kind of favorite moments.
Yeah,
because you got to see them kind of just being around with each other, especially in that situation, because Lafayette, he knows something is up.
Yeah. You had your questions about Lafayette, because you knew he was still loyal to you, even after you left the Order and you were disgraced, but you were like, is he going to stay with the Order and, you know, kind of toss me aside, or is he going to stay true to Lafayette and to Galahad? And so to see him, like, decide, you know, Galahad, you're my boy, and I'm gonna stick with you. I know that you're not doing this for shits and giggles, that there's something up. That was a great moment.
Yeah, because having him be, you know, just be them, person to person, was something that we keep on saying this, but it's something that's really was needed between these characters, because it creates a connection between them, and it creates a connection for you, the player.
Yeah.
For them.
Yeah.
And especially because everything that happens there, you see Lafayette kind of, when you're kind of discovered and you're being outcast, there's a vote, and it's a unanimous vote. But like during that entire thing, you can tell Lafayette was like, I don't really want to vote like to do this, but I kind of have to, because,
you know, Igraine was clearly, you know, in a bit of a lover scorn rage at that point, so she was kind of off the table. But Lafayette, you were the one that you're like, I want him to say something, but you don't hate him for voting to exile you.
Understand why he wouldn't, because that's kind of like, well, he's going to put a target on his back immediately.
Yeah, that would have made life very difficult for Lafayette.
But the thing between, I mean, Igraine was clearly very, very angry at Galahad, and that sort of kind of broke my heart to a degree, because I just because, you know, there's stuff going on between them.
It frustrated me, though. It frustrated me that, you know, Igraine's objections to Galahad's behavior were in part because she was ignorant of what was going on, and Galahad really should have, you know, like, clued her in, but it seemed to be played as, like, she's pissed because she saw Galahad with another chick. I was really angry. It wasn't, like, overt, and I think it was suggested, and that a lot of people probably walked away being like, "Oh, she's a jealous bitch." But
I didn't get that at all.
Okay, well, you're also a decent person, so
thank you.
But I think that they were kind of trying to play that a little bit, because but the shot of like Galahad, when Igraine sees them together, it's Galahad and Lakshmi walking out of a brothel with Galahad like half dressed.
Okay, I can see where you're coming from.
It bothered me as somebody that wanted more for Igraine. That bothered me.
What I got out of that wasn't that she was jealous of that. She was
angry because she was being left in the dark.
That's
like her
mostly what I got.
Closest friend.
Yeah, that's basically what I got out of it. And seeing, like, I mean, you have this person you're very close to, and, you know, you kind of trust them with everything. And then they're kind of, I mean, even before Galahad kind of went off to kind of meet the rebel leader himself.
Yeah, she was already like, Galahad,
there's something. Calm down. Like, you're like, I have a feeling that she was very, not distrustful of Galahad, but more like worried.
I think that she was worried, and with good reason. I mean, he went like ape on the bridge after Percival died, and like, you know, they understood that, like, oh, it's because, you know, he was close to Percival and he does, you know, nobody wants to see their friend die. So, you know, I think she understood that, but then seeing him like sneaking around, and she had reason to be
like, you talk about leaving off with another woman out of a brothel, but I think it was more that she was seeing him leave with the rebel leader. But
she didn't know that Lakshmi was the rebel leader, did she?
Yeah, she did.
Okay, all right.
I thought she did.
I don't know.
But yeah, and then that entire scene when they infiltrate the Hastings Manor, that entire little thing where she's arresting Galahad, and like, she's very... Like, she isn't happy to do that because she's still giving attitude towards that lord.
But she is still kind of in a blind rage at that point.
Because she thinks Galahad is doing really stupid things. Mm. And she's kind of pissed off about that. And I mean, at the beginning of the game, which I hate it when games do this, by the way, when they take you to a point in time somewhere in the middle of the game at the very beginning of the game.
I think that they did it all right enough. I wasn't.
I mean, yeah,
it
was all right, but I'm just like, man, okay, time skip.
Yeah.
But that, because she still seemed to worry about him even after.
I think that it was that she was angry at him, and she was kind of letting that anger drive her, but there were moments where you realized, like, she does still, you know, really care about Galahad, and that she's not just doing this for, you know, like, stupid reasons. But I wish that there was, again, precedent in her character to better understand that behavior, that, you know, we get an idea of her. She's kind of fun, she's flirty, and she's awesome. I really liked Igraine in the beginning.
Nice accent.
Oh man, the accent. Slay me. But yeah, so I wish that we kind of got a better impression of her as a character and saw that, you know, she has that, I guess, tendency to be very headstrong and kind of get a little run away with jealousy maybe, and with, you know, anger. But that, you know, she does mean well. I wish that we had a better understanding of her character, because I feel like that would have informed a lot of her actions. That there is something going on here. It's not just bad storytelling. That she clearly has a character that is driving these actions. We didn't get to see that character enough.
Yeah, that's kind of the story of most of these characters in this game.
You know, to once again draw a parallel to Knights of the Old Republic, that Bastila has very similar behavior, that she gets completely run away with her you know, kind of ambitions and, that kind of thing. And you know, the first impression you have is like, wow, Bastila, you're a bitch, and you need to like calm the down. But you know, you as you understand the character better, as you spend time with her, as you learn about her past, you understand why she is that way and what it means when she's doing that. You learn to recognize that behavior in her. And I wish that we had that with Igraine, because, you know, we got that, you know, she's kind of cocky and that kind of, but you didn't go beyond that.
The thing about, particularly Igraine, we have a lot of information about her, but we don't know details of that information. Yeah. Like, we have her past. She was an orphan. Mm-hmm. She has family who her father is the head guy in the order. Mm-hmm. And her brother, well, I guess this is a spoilercast, her brother isn't really her brother.
Yeah.
Or something with that. Her brother is actually one of the half-breeds that the order is kind of fighting against, but she doesn't know that. So you have, especially in that, because you have this entire dynamic of, she doesn't know Galahad knows that her brother is I'm just going to say werewolf, is a werewolf. So Galahad knows that her brother is a werewolf, but she doesn't know that. The game kind of ends on this, it's not really a headline, but this notion that Alistair killed Igraine's brother. And you have that right there. You don't really get anything out of that because it happens kind of right at the end. So there isn't really, you know, much time for character I guess.
There's not time for you to see,
Yeah,
like,
they're not
Igraine is
character
sad because her
reactions.
brother died.
Yeah, and she's not... But, like, you can imagine Igraine hearing that Galahad killed her brother.
Yeah.
And not knowing kind of the specifics of why that happened.
Yeah.
That you have this... It's family versus, you know, kind of the person she loves / you know, cares about. So you have a lot of that in this game where you have information, but you don't have a good... You kind of have to make up the details.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that in itself is kind of fun to do. But...
It's fun to do as somebody that likes to write fan fiction, but it's a problem that the game has.
There's a point of where you're kind of too vague about certain things that it's kind of... You just kind of lose what you're trying to go for.
Right. And part of what really kills me about it is that I think that this game is clearly going to be turned into a series. Like, it's going to have a sequel. And it's going to have a sequel. I have no doubt in my mind.
I have a good feeling that it will, but I'm sort of worried about certain things.
I do get worried given, like, the bad press surrounding it that maybe they won't want to do a sequel, but I think that there will be a sequel. But I think that the game, you know, could be really improved through, like, DLC that may... Kind of like a Left Behind DLC that kind of takes you back and just gives you a better understanding of the character. And, you know, they could do that through DLC, they could do that through sequels, but a game shouldn't have to be supplemented by that stuff. That Left Behind, it added to what we saw in The Last of Us. It added to our understanding of Ellie. But with the Order 1886, if they did that for, say, Lafayette or Igraine, that it would be supplementing what wasn't there before.
This is kind of a bad thing to say because you shouldn't want there to be DLC for something expanding on this. But I would actually love a DLC where either Lafayette or Percival or Igraine, where you control them.
Yeah.
You kind of do their thing.
I would love that because I think that there is a really interesting story in Igraine's past that, you know, I got the impression, and I don't know if this is, like, kind of fitting in with the world's lore, that her and Alistair were maybe biological siblings. It doesn't really matter. They were in an orphanage, and that orphanage was attacked by lichens, and the head guy, I don't remember his name.
I don't either.
Adoptive father, he was like the head knight. It's bothering me that I don't remember his name.
I'm not sure if he was named or not.
He had to have a name.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter that much, but it doesn't matter that much. But that he kind of rescued them from it. And if you notice, she does have like a scratch scar on her neck. And, you know, I would like to, you know, understand the story behind that scar and, you know, see, you know, their past and how she was inducted into the knighthood and what maybe young Galahad was like and what their dynamic was like. I would like Lafayette to, you know, see his history in France because, you know, he was clearly young. He was clearly part of the French Revolution. That's why he screams like liberty all the time. But he did seem like a walking caricature of the French Revolution. And so I want to see him taken beyond that because it's fine to start with that like mold of a character, but you have to do something more with it.
Particularly with Lafayette, I'd be interested in seeing their vision of an alternate America because he was obviously also involved with the American Revolution.
Yeah.
So that would have actually, just from a settings perspective, that would have been interesting because obviously America at that time wasn't an industrial. Actually,
it could have been in this like alternate timeline.
Yeah. It really depends on a lot of things, but yeah, I mean Lafayette, he was very much kind of, as you said, kind of the stereotypical vision of what France was at the time.
Yeah.
But I still think they played it off rather well with his character. Oh, by the way, that headmaster guy, his name is Augustus.
Okay.
Baron Augustus.
All right.
Anyway, but yeah, like having a better look at the characters that week.
It would have just added so much to the game. It would have added length to the game, which gets those people who are like, oh, this game can be played through in like 8 hours. It would have maybe quieted them down a little bit, and it would have added so much to the story and what was going on with the game.
Like, I mean, this because the actual plot of the game itself is
it's good.
Relatively, it's simple.
Yeah. It's not anything revolutionary is the point that we're getting at. I think it's a good story. It's fun and it's simple, but you know, they have such a cool setting and we were promised such cool characters that, you know, it doesn't matter that much that the story was simple if it was well done. And again, to compare it to The Last of Us, the story that you have, it's a good story. It's not anything that, you know, you've never really seen before. It's predictable sometimes. It's so well done. and the characters are so vivid and you're so attached to them that it doesn't really matter that the story is simple.
There's nothing wrong with a simple or even predictable
Absolutely
story.
not. And, you know, on the opposite side, Kingdom Hearts has a bonkers story that they really could do to simplify things. Because, you know, the first game had a very simple story for Kingdom Hearts that, you know, kid loses his friends, kid goes on journey to find his friends, kind of gets wrapped up in a bigger thing, but it's still mostly just about, you know, like finding your friends. And that worked really well for the first Kingdom Hearts game because, again, the characters were well done, the settings were well done, it was a fun game. And so, you know, the Order 1886 could have done that too because, you know, they have the building blocks, but they didn't really put them together that well.
Like, there's a lot there that I think would make for a good, as we were mentioning, a good sequel, because there's a foundation there.
Yeah.
It'd be a shame if it kind of was just left at this.
Yeah.
Because there is a lot of really neat ideas, not only in story, but also just gameplay and setting.
Yeah.
That it would be kind of a bummer not to have that expanded upon in any way.
It's just all these ideas being thrown at you, and they kind of try to put them together, and they do an alright job of it, but I want to see them, you know, like, take another whack at those ideas, because, you know, not just that, you know, they have cool characters that they've established, they have the lore, but this is a beautiful, beautiful game. And that's something that we need to talk about, that it would be a shame if this engine only got like 1 or 2 games made on it, because this is gorgeous.
I have a feeling that a majority of one of the main reasons Sony was kind of invested in this game and in this company was because of that engine they were creating.
Yeah.
Not that I think that they will make that kind of a universal engine. I do not think that. I do think that the tech that was kind of done with this game will be seen again. I really do think so, because I don't think having this much invested in an engine like this, there's kind of no way it doesn't get really used much.
And that's another reason that Sony would really be hyping this game, because they can point at it and say, like, look at what we can accomplish with the PlayStation 4 and show people like screenshots and videos of it. I mean, I can't talk about it enough how gorgeous this game is, you know, like the dust in the air, and honestly, like, again, the hospital scene being awesome, the lamps that you hold, just the way that the light works is beautiful, and the clothing, and there
were multiple times in this game where I thought I was in a cutscene but wasn't.
Yeah.
One of the defining features of this game is that yes, there are cutscenes, but it is seamless.
Yeah.
Like, particularly the one that really got me was in the second chapter. You're kind of in the round table of the knights, and you're kind of looking up at the ceiling with a chandelier and all this other stuff.
That ceiling was gorgeous.
Yes, it was. And the camera, I mean, how the cutscene ends is with kind of the camera pointed up at the ceiling. I spent a few seconds just standing there because I thought the cutscene was still going. And once I kind of moved my controller and Galahad moved, I was like, oh. And
that's really awesome. I really like that because, you know, coming from playing a lot of Final Fantasy games, it's very evident when you switch between, like, cutscene and gameplay, especially with ones like Final Fantasy X, where sometimes they switch to, like, full motion video back to, like, crappy game graphics, and it's a bit of an issue that plagues the Final Fantasy series. Final Fantasy 13 kind of toned it down a little, but it's still an issue.
It's kind of a thing with most games, really.
But that
even
the Order
The Last of Us was kind of guilty of that too. They kind of had the dramatic effect of a black cutaway, so that kind of alleviated some of that. But
but the Order 1886 totally just made it like flow right through, and that was really, really nice to see. That was, like, to me, one of those things that was just like, this is next gen. You know, I don't have to worry about these very, like, evident cuts between things.
Yeah, because, like, as we're talking about this, photo mode was recently released for the Order, which, if you don't know what photo mode is, it is basically have fun and take very pretty pictures.
It turns you into a photographer in the game. It's a lot of fun.
It's really, one of the interesting things about this photo mode that I didn't really see in other games that have featured this is that you have control over the camera in such a way where you can kind of go further into the level.
Yes.
Without needing to move your characters, because like The Last of Us has it, Infamous has it.
The Last of Us does have it, but it's very limited. Speaking as somebody that has recently been replaying The Last of Us just to take pretty pictures, it's there, but it's finicky, first of all, and it's kind of limited, And there is kind of, I think, a gameplay reason for that I realized early on playing The Last of Us, that I could go into photo mode and sort of inspect the area in photo mode and, see like, okay, there's a clicker here and, I'll go this path. So I do think that there are arguably gameplay reasons for it, and it's not so limited. I mean, I'm taking things from weird angles, so that's another thing, but I did see a GIF on Reddit. I haven't used photo mode myself yet, but I did see a GIF on Reddit of somebody like literally just going across the field, and it would let you look at a lot of stuff that you wouldn't really see before.
On NeoGAF, there's for the Order, they have these like, it looks really cool because it looks like one of those like music videos or movies where they kind of have, or trailer, where you kind of have a camera that just pans around a still object.
Yeah.
And it's just really cool seeing everything in kind of just paused in time, and you have this camera just kind of slowly rotating throughout everything. I
think that photo mode, I mean, I'm so happy to see that photo mode is being put into, like, I think most first party games.
Yeah, I think every first party game after Infamous has it, except for Bloodborne. Bloodborne is interesting because there's no pausing in that game, so that'd be kind of hard to implement in a way that makes sense.
Photo mode, I think I'm excited to replay the Order 1886 and play around in photo mode, just because it'll let you experience these environments in a way that you didn't really get to before, and that's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. What's really interesting, this is also kind of a complaint about the Order, which I didn't have too much trouble with, but you can also get rid of film grain while in photo mode.
I didn't really even notice the film grain.
Yeah, I didn't notice it either, but I've heard there's the two graphical things that people absolutely hated about the Order was the film grain and the chromatic aberration, which I also didn't really notice any chromatic aberration either. Well,
we should probably talk about the black bars as well.
Well, yeah, that wasn't so much as a post-process effect as it was this is just kind of how it is.
Yeah. But I mean, that I'm just gonna say that was a source of a lot of the negativity that we were talking about, that the press had, the black barring.
I didn't care. Like,
the only time that I cared about it was during the stealth sections, in which I would have liked to maybe have like a bigger field of view, but I have a lot of problems with the stealth sections, so
yeah, that was another downer for me. I don't like instant fail stealth sections in general.
I spent I think that all in all, it probably took me 14 hours to play through the Order the first time. I think I spent 3 hours just on one stealth section because I kept failing, and you like are sent back to the beginning, and that's a pain in the ass. But when I played it through the second time, the person I was playing it with said, "Oh, you can just use the crossbow and take people out with that." I did not realize that my first time. And so I played through the whole thing doing the like time your button press, and that's why it took me so goddamn long.
I actually applaud you for getting through that way.
I don't know how I did it, because the second time we just crossbowed everybody.
Yeah, like I thought, like when the section that gave me a lot of trouble was a certain part in, not as much trouble as you had with and part, but the part that gave me the most trouble in regards to stealth was a section on the Agamemnon.
Okay, yeah.
Where there's just these two patrol things, and I just, for whatever reason, I can get the first one down just fine, but the second one I just could not read his pattern, and I kept on getting spotted.
That's actually one thing I will say in favor of the stealth in the game, is that with stealth in other games, that one of the pitfalls they can kind of fall into is that you can figure out the path that the enemy walks in and kind of, do your stealth according to that. And that can be good sometimes because it makes it a little bit easier for you as a player, and it requires observational tactics, and, it does have its good points, but it's also not terribly realistic. Unless, I guess, it is a patrol and they have, like, a set route that they're going over. But with the Order, they didn't really have that, and I kind of liked that.
Yeah, like, stealth, like, I always like mentioning Metal Gear Solid whenever I can. I like how they handle it because there's a patrol. Like, there's a set patrol thing. If you happen to get spotted during it, then it raises the alert where they're like, hey, we see you. I'm going to shoot you now. But if you can hide from that, and then that initial alert goes away, they will not know where you are, and they won't actively look for you but they'll be aware of you and there'll be more people around now.
Which would have been really nice in the Order, because in the Order, it's if they see you, just instantly, you're done.
Yeah, that's not fun. Like, no matter what the game, that isn't fun.
No, because it's so unforgiving, and that's what keeps you there for 3 hours playing
That
this
stealth
thing.
section made me so sad to watch because the person I was watching didn't seem to get it at first. Like, they didn't understand that it would fail them and I don't know. I think Assassin's Creed is probably not the best comparison, but when you stealth, you can get away in, like, a lot of ways, where in this, I was just like, really, guys?
Yeah.
Not even 2 different ways, just one. Okay.
Yeah.
You do your thing, but...
It would have been nice if, like, they spotted you and you could kind of flee a little bit and hide somewhere and have them say, like, okay, we can't find him, just, like, keep your guard up. Like, it sounds like they're doing Metal Gear Solid, but, like, that you didn't just die.
Yeah, something like that.
Because that's just really poor.
And it also, it's not even that it was poor, but it made the rest of the game seem a little ridiculous by comparison, because, when you're in a gunfight, you can take a couple hits before you're down, but the fact that this one guy with his little pistol just takes you out immediately, you're like, why could I take, like 30 rounds from this other dude, but, this little pistol, because he saw me behind the planter, I'm out.
I'm not entirely opposed to stealth sections in games, but it's just when it's ever instant fail like that, it's just really, really a bummer.
I like stealth. I've really warmed up to stealth. I first played Tomb Raider, and that was kind of my first exposure to stealth, and I mean, stealth in Tomb Raider is ridiculous for its own reasons, because people forget that you're around. That, like, if they see you and then you go hide, they legitimately forget that they saw you at all. And it's very easy stealth. And then I played The Last of Us, which is, of course, like the greatest thing ever. And so that was really good. That to go to the Order, I'm like, fuck this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do want to talk about the Rebels a little bit, because the Rebel plotline, it took me by surprise how big it ended up being. That I was expecting this to be a story about the Knights, and it really ended up being a story about the Rebels, that you spent a lot of time with the Rebel leader, Lakshmi. I think that was her name, right? Lakshmi?
I believe that's right.
Lakshmi, and, like, Desna, I think, was her friend.
I have Wikipedia open.
Yeah,
so let's see.
It doesn't matter that much,
Yeah.
Which, by the way, total lesbian vibes going on between those two. But yeah, it was a lot about the Rebels, and I was really happy about that, because it got Indian characters into the game, and I think that, like, the head of Ready at Dawn is Indian.
I believe so, yes.
Which I was really happy to see that, just because, you don't see Indian people in games that much. So I was pleased about that. And the Rebels were cool. I liked the Rebels.
I did too.
Yeah, I mean, I did have some lingering resentment about the Rebels, because I didn't like that we were not looking at, like, Lafayette and Ingrain, and that we had to focus on the Rebels instead. So, like, I was a little angry about that regarding the Rebels, but on the whole, I did like the Rebels. I thought that they had some interesting things, and I liked that they weren't presented as being like, oh my gosh, the Rebels were right all along, how can we be so foolish? That the Rebels had their problems too, that they did a lot of shitty things, but it was just a very balanced look at them, and I liked that.
Yeah, as you said, they aren't just this...
Galahad distrusts them.
For a good reason,
yes,
because they are...
They killed Percival.
Yeah, they killed Percival. They are, like, terrorizing kind of London.
They've been blowing up,
There is reason for that distrust. But they do have a reason for kind of going, not only against the main corporation that they're kind of focusing most of their attacks on, but also the Order itself.
Yeah.
Because Lakshmi is she has knowledge of the Order, and she herself has the black water that the Order uses. So as Galahad, you get interested into why she knows this and why she has this.
Yeah.
And that was welcome, because we didn't really have a lot of that throughout most of the game.
They weren't just a little bands of rebels that were like a thorn in the Order's side, that, this was a legitimate threat to them because they had this technology, they had thermite rifles, they had the Blackwater, that, they were cool. They were a neat little group, and I was happy with how the rebels were done. Yeah. I also want to talk about Tesla. Tesla was a badass. Tesla ended up being
Tesla
like,
is great.
He was like your main bro, that, where Lafayette kind of did stay loyal to you, but also, tried to, I guess, play double agent and also stay loyal to the Order.
Like, I feel Lafayette's role is that he's going to be a part of the Order because he doesn't want to not know what's going on within.
But Tesla, he kind of just stays with you, and I love, he's like, my friend's Galahad, and you guys are bros, and I loved that. Tesla was great.
It was kind of a surprise, kind of how not so much important, but how prominent he was.
Oh yeah.
Especially towards the end of the game, when it became like, whoa, he seems to be the guy who's kind of has connections.
He rescued you.
He rescued you, and he has connections with the rebels.
Yeah.
Some fashion.
Yeah. I also love the little spat that they alluded to between him and Edison. That was cute. Yeah. So I mean, in terms of
Edison was an asshole.
Yeah.
So
in terms of doing characters, I feel like Tesla was done well. I mean, he is a secondary character, so of course he doesn't have the focus that you would expect on Igraine or Lafayette, but he was kind of fleshed out, I think, well enough. And I mean, of course, there's the whole he is a historical figure. He was an actual person, so you have that background on him. But Tesla was cool. I was really happy with how they did Tesla, and that's coming from someone who was a little wary of them putting an actual historical figure in it. But I really like Tesla, so shout out to my bro Tesla.
I didn't realize that they had based Tesla off of the historical figure Tesla, and I felt really dumb after when I read that.
You thought that they just had the same name?
Yeah.
The same
I don't
Tesla.
know why it didn't occur to me before, but I was watching it and I'm like, oh, he's cool. I've heard of that name somewhere, but you know what? Everybody has the same name in the 1800s England. It's fine. But
didn't they even show a Tesla coil in his lab?
Yes, they did. Cal didn't play the game. Maybe she didn't see the Tesla coil.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe for some people that don't know their history too well, that could have been a little bit more clear, aka just for me. But you know what? Everything else, he was good. I liked him. He was a good egg. That's what I thought.
He was. He really was. He was the one character that you couldn't be mad at. I love Igraine, even with all my feelings about how she was kind of handled poorly. But you're kind of pissed at her. You kind of just want to shake her and be like, yo, wake up, these things are happening. But Tesla, you can't be angry at him, because he seems to know everything, and he plays the innocent so well, and he equips you with some badass stuff, and just Tesla is a really good guy.
Which, if we're talking about badass stuff, the weapons in the game were really cool. I enjoyed, obviously the thermite rifle is probably my favorite thing.
I like the arc gun more than the thermite rifle.
The arc gun is really cool.
Yeah.
That is really cool. I also, I do like the initial assault rifle you get.
The one that can stun people?
Yeah, the one that can shoot an air blast at people, because stunning people is just great. Because if you're getting fired on, you stun them, and then you can either just shoot them, or you can just go up and melee them, especially against the shotgun people, because those people just get right up in your business. Those guys were impossible
to take out if you didn't use the stun thing or the black sight. That, those guys, the gameplay, it did have the problem, I felt, where there wasn't enough flanking going on, that the enemies weren't really they weren't a huge threat if you just kind of sat behind the cover and waited. For them to pop out. It felt a lot like, what do people call that? A gallery shooting range?
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, but it did have that problem, but the shotgun guys got right up in your grill and took
that
you
is
out.
Just that made me uneasy the few times.
Yeah, when you see them, you're like, oh.
At one point, I had two of them coming up on me, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do.
Yeah.
But I honestly feel the gunplay was really good. It felt really nice. The guns had a very nice feel to them, and they handled very well. The one thing that I didn't enjoy about it was it suffered kind of what the first Uncharted suffered from, is that you just have this wave after wave of enemies coming in from a point on the map.
Yeah.
And that just kind of gets boring after a while, because you're not only is it boring in the sense that it's the same thing, it's boring in that this isn't even a challenge. It's just they're coming, and I guess they're here now, so let's shoot them.
Yeah, I remember very clearly when you're alone with Lafayette in Whitechapel, there's that time where you're sitting there just taking out guys, and I'm sitting there thinking am I supposed to be doing something, or are they really just throwing enemies at me over and over and over again? And so I did die during that part, because I decided to get up and try to move forward and see if maybe I was just doing something wrong, missing something. Yeah, but no, it was just that they were throwing hordes of enemies at you. And the Tomb Raider actually had that problem too, and Tomb Raider had extended issues with it because from a narrative point, it created a lot of issues, but it was also just like, you know, you're moving through this level and then all of a sudden you're in this big wide open area and you're like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to shoot things for 20 minutes now.
Yeah, that's kind of a problem with a lot of games in general.
Yeah.
I feel kind of The Last of Us handled it a bit better.
The Last of Us handled it better because you were always moving in The Last of Us.
True.
You always had a goal. And so, you know, you couldn't go this way for some reason. So, you know, you had to go through like the subway or the sewers or something. So you had to move past these things. But for some reason in other games, they think like, okay, so, you know, here's the gameplay segment where you're going to shoot things for a while, and then you get to walk for a little while, and then like you're going to shoot more things for a while. They don't really marry the two concepts together like The Last of Us did.
It is a problem kind of in a lot of modern games.
Yeah, that's, you know, like, bag on the Order for having this problem. Like, you also have to point at, you know, you said the first Uncharted, Tomb Raider, and those are very well-regarded games, that this is a problem with the Order that has kind of been blown out of proportion because people are looking for issues.
Like,
with the
from
game.
my personal standpoint, I feel the Order 1886 is very similar to the first Uncharted game. Because the first Uncharted game, it didn't get just absolutely dragged upon in reviews, but it wasn't, I don't want to say well received, but it wasn't considered
Uncharted.
great.
It wasn't like
it was like an average game.
Yeah, the series Uncharted has such clout now, but the first game did not have that. It wasn't until the second game that people are like, "Wow, Uncharted."
Yeah, the first game, it was, I would say it's a good game. It wasn't amazing, but that is kind of a thing just in general, which is kind of a bummer because I don't think there's a way to actually. I don't want to say solve because let me back up. I don't think there's a good way to actually avoid that issue in games. What I think you can do is cleverly hide that it's an issue. So as you mentioned with The Last of Us, you're always moving, despite the fact that it isn't a horde of enemies that are continually coming at you. It is just a set amount of enemies usually, and you're just kind of moving through. Uncharted 2 solved it in very neat ways. Particularly one of my favorite areas in that game was you're on a train. So there is a horde of enemies, but that during this entire particular level, you're moving you're like climbing over cars on a train, and you're trying to get to the head of the train. So that hides the fact that they're throwing a bunch of enemies at you very well.
Because there's a goal.
Yeah, there's a goal, and you're moving. And you're moving across this train, and the train itself is moving from this jungle up into the snowy mountains. So you have this sense of progression that you don't feel that you're just having these enemies thrown at you.
Yeah. Whereas in the Order, when you're sitting there behind a wall just taking out enemies, there's no movement. There's no goal that you feel like you're moving towards. And that's what results in the player saying, like, am I missing something?
But besides that, the actual like core gunplay stuff was actually really good. I just think it's enemy design. I mean, not enemy design, but enemy placement and combat design that was kind of lacking. Because there is nothing more that made me feel more like a badass than shooting a grenade out of somebody's hand.
Yeah.
Because that was the most. Not only was it was gruesome because, you know, grenades exploding in somebody's hands usually is gruesome, but it was just the most satisfying, like, you're going to throw this grenade at me, I'm going to shoot it before you even get that chance, and I feel great.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah. So it was fun to see that in the Order, and I agree.
Burning people is fun.
I agree that, you know, the gunplay in the Order, I will say it was a little bit uninspired in some ways, and that it wasn't super original, but it did have really good things. It was good gameplay. It wasn't, you know, like, gameplay that's going to change your life, but it was good gameplay, and that is appreciated, especially because I've also been replaying Mass Effect, and playing the first Mass Effect, you can see how, like, bad gameplay can go. And so for them to do a good cover-based shooter, it's appreciated. I don't play a lot of shooters, but I can say that, like, it was a good shooter. You know, it wasn't a great shooter, but it was a good shooter. The guns felt satisfying, the shots felt satisfying, the kills felt satisfying, and it was fun. I looked forward to, you know, like, getting to play the game a little bit. But to kind of move into the sort of future of the series and extend the comparison to Uncharted, I do have a lot of faith in the sequel, because I think that the negative reviews surrounding the Order have pointed out to Reddit on, like, these are the problems you had with the game, and That's why it's important to do constructive reviews and not just say, like, the game is too short. Say, like, the game is too short, so that prevents us from enjoying the characters in a certain way. And I think that will let Ready at Dawn fix these problems, because they are all fixable problems. There's no inherent issue with the Order that's, like, dragging it down that would be completely unfixable. It's a really cool setting. There are really cool characters here. There's good gameplay that they can take even further, and there's a story that, you know, they can do a lot with. And that really does give me hope with a sequel, and I think that it could be like the Uncharted series, where the sequel is what turns it into such a staple for people. And, you know, that's true of Assassin's Creed, that, like, a lot of people tell you, just, you know, skip the first Assassin's Creed because it's not that great, and just go to the second one. And I think that there is that potential with the Order, that it could do so much right with the sequel, if it ends up being called The Order 1887 or whatever the hell it is, that it could be like that. And then, you know, people will go back and tell you, you know, like, oh, just start with the sequel and then, you know, maybe go back and play the first one later. Because that's another good thing, that the story being fairly simple with The Order 1886 is that, you know, you can catch somebody up on it pretty quickly. As
we've been mentioning, it is very much, I'd be very interested in seeing a sequel, because the problems I have with the game are very, I don't want to say, I will actually say the problems I have with the game are minor, but having so many minor problems kind of adds up to kind of being a disappointment.
Yeah.
So if they can just fix those problems, I would think a sequel would be a much better experience to go through, because there is a lot there that I'm still interested in knowing where the story goes, and where these characters are going to end up, especially how it ends with kind of a Batman-esque Galahad.
It really was Batman-esque.
looking over London, and like he was talking to Tesla during this, and he was like, I'm not a knight anymore, but he still seems to be interested in kind of like, okay, he knows there's stuff going on with the Order, because the Lord Chancellor guy of the
is still alive. Yeah.
Well, not so much he's still alive, but he knew that his son Alistair was a werewolf, and he knows that there is things going around in this Order that is not good.
Yeah. It was a very Batman vibe, and then also, like, one of the last lines that he gave, it reminded me a lot of Breaking Bad. In, like, one of the last couple episodes of Breaking Bad, Walt is, like, on the phone with Skylar, and, like, the police are tapping the phone, and she's like, just come back, Walt, just give it up. And he's like, I still have things left to do, and just, like, hangs up the phone. And that was really the vibe that I got from The Order 1886. And I mean, you know, you can say, like, oh, it was cheap of them to leave so much unresolved, and it was sloppy of them to leave so much unresolved. And I do agree with that, but it also gets you really excited for the sequel, that, you know, you want to see, like, what does Galahad ends up doing? Does he take down the Order? Do they, like, institute changes in the Order? How will Igraine react when she learns will she learn the truth at all? You know, that you're excited to see those moments come, and that the Order, you know, it did do enough that you care to see these plot lines sort of resolved, and
just kind of how the lore of this game goes. You don't really know when the sequel will take place, because it could be it just picks up right where the last one left off, or it could take place like in 1951, or kind of whenever they want to, because of the lore behind it is that these members of the Order, or I should more precise say people who use Blackwater, they have really extended lives.
Yeah.
So you could potentially see this game going into a more modern period. You could even possibly see it going into the future. You can even see it going into the past if you want a prequel or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting about where they can go with all that.
And that's why I really want a sequel to do well, because I want to see this turned into a series, because they have the potential to not, like, you know, they can do, you know, like the Galahad arc of it, and then they can even, you know, go back in time and have totally new cast of characters and do a completely unique story, and then, you know, go way into the future and do something there, and, you know, have it turn into kind of what Mass Effect is turning into. That, you know, the first trilogy, it was about Shepard, and it was a very contained story, but now that has ended, we're starting a new chapter sort of in the Mass Effect universe, because the Order 1886 has such a great universe and world, that they can do so much with, and I want to see it turn into a big series.
And from a narrative perspective, having these characters live that long opens up a lot of interesting possibilities.
Oh yeah,
because you have like let's just take this right now, how Igraine is kind of angry at Galahad. Imagine if you had that anger for about 100 years. So it is. Man, imagine an order set in the 1980s.
Okay, I do not want to see that.
Man.
I feel the same way. I mean, I only watched it, so I feel like I didn't get the whole experience, but the part I got was that, yeah, the game had some problems, but they have a really good story idea here, and they could definitely, like, flesh it out and turn it into something great. So I hope that they do, because it is really cool. It's not, like, most of the games I'm been seeing, it's like, you know, the apocalypse kind of dystopian, but this was set in, it was still kind of dystopian, but it was dystopian in the past.
Yeah.
Which is kind of
and I mean,
newer,
you're a perfect person to ask that, you know, I guess you probably intend to get a PlayStation 4 somewhere down the line, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, if a sequel comes out and you see that, you know, it's received really well and, you know, you're familiar with what the story was of the first game, would you buy the sequel and consider playing it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if it's well done and they fix what they have to fix, I think it'll be good, and I'd be excited for it.
Yeah, and I think that that's good. That, you know, its failings aside, it's at least given us the potential for a new, like, PlayStation exclusive juggernaut series.
I mean, I feel like all games sort of fail on their first try. I mean, obviously there's, like, Last of Us, which did really well.
I mean,
but
yeah.
Even Kingdom Hearts, the first one, didn't, I mean, it was
had its
alright.
problems.
But, exactly. So I don't understand why it's getting so much hate, because I feel like every game goes through this when there's a first game. That it's kind of their, like, entering into the gaming community, their rite of passage, so I didn't really get.
Yeah. I mean, you do have to keep in mind that this, I think that it's influenced in some way by, first of all, this whole Gamergate thing. That people feel that the game industry, they distrust the game industry. So to have a game that didn't really deliver on what people felt was promised, and to have the length be such an issue, I think that was expounded by, you know, us being in the wake of Gamergate. I also think that this was a problem of the increasing price of being a gamer, that, you know, it's $60 for a new game, and that's a lot of money to some people. And so to have to spend $60 on this new game, people aren't happy about that. And of course you can just wait until it comes down in price, you know, a couple weeks after the order was out, you could get it for like $40. So that is a solvable issue, but it is something that ends with a lot of discontent with it. And then, there was something else that now I'm forgetting that was really big. Oh, here we go. Okay, I got it. It's also that the PlayStation 4 does not have that many AAA titles for it yet, so people have big expectations for when one comes out. So the order was naturally disappointing in that way for a lot of people. Me
personally, I don't put too much stock in, like, review scores and stuff like that. But I am, out of, I guess, hatred of myself, I kind of browse topics on NeoGAF about kind of just review threads of, you know, major games.
Yeah.
And I've kind of expected the kind of show, I guess, that happened in the order thread. And going into just a recent game, Bloodborne, there were so many people in that thread who were expecting the game to average around anywhere between 70 and 80 on, like, a media critic or something like that. Yeah. They were expecting it to be like, oh, that's okay. And it was quite something to see those expectations just completely just shattered. And Bloodborne is tied as the highest rated.
It's the it game right now. Bloodborne is a big deal right now.
Yeah, it is the highest rated next gen game, tied with I think Super Mario 3D World. So it is, yeah, it's nice to see, like, people's expectations change, but, like, going into review threads for certain games, you kind of get a feel for what you expect.
Yeah. And
kind of just the general vibe and things like that. But yeah, I do think a lot of expectations were put on it because of the fact that there weren't a lot of exclusive games out on, you know, like, on the PS4. And not only that, but the order itself was delayed.
Yeah.
And it was kind of just, they're kind of pumping this out as like, hey, this was going to be our big game of fall 2014, which makes me, which honestly, given kind of the reactions and everything to that, I think it's a good idea that they delayed it because they moved it into a month where nothing comes out.
Yeah.
So that kind of alleviated some of the stuff. But yeah, I do think that it is, I think it's a good entry point. I think.
Yeah.
I think it is a good game. Nothing amazing or nothing like you should play this, but it
has so much potential.
And the important thing is that I enjoyed my time with it.
Yes.
So that's kind of all I care about.
Yeah, I paid a lot of money for the game, and, I paid more than most people. So if anybody has a right to complain that they feel like they didn't get their money's worth, it's me. And I do feel that a little bit, but I'm still, not regretting the purchase. And that matters for a lot. That goes a long way. And this is, the KH-Vids podcast. We are representing our views. And, I do think that, it was an issue of clickbait. Like we said a little bit, that review sites realized that bagging on the order would get them a lot of clicks. And so they did that. And that's kind of what I meant by saying, like, hate train before. That it wasn't that the game was hateable, it's that hating it kind of turned into the popular reaction to it.
Yeah, like, as I said, I don't give much. I don't care
Yeah.
for scores. But some of the scores that I just couldn't help but laugh at because it was kind of really obvious about what they're doing, like giving the game a 1 out of 10.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, I know what you're doing here.
The game has problems, but it is not worth a 1 out of 10. And, people just want to do that so that somebody will say, like, oh, so-and-so gaming site gave it a 1 out of 10. Let me check out why. That, it's clickbait. It really is. And I think we also have to consider that this is Ready at Dawn's first game in a lot of ways. They did do the God of War game, and I honestly think that's the only other thing.
Yeah,
right?
they've done God of War Chain of Olympus, which was for the PSP. They also did God of War Ghost of Sparta, which was for the PSP. And they did Daxter, which was for PSP. Oh, and they also, this isn't their game, but they ported Okami on the Wii.
Okay.
But that's not really a game they made.
Yeah, this really is their first original game. That this was the first time that they went out there with the new idea and that they did everything totally original, all in-house. That, for a first attempt, it's really good. It really is. And that's, to compare it to something like Last of Us, which is the first in what will become a series, but it's coming from Naughty Dog. And Naughty Dog is an experienced developer.
Yeah, they have over 25 years of experience.
That Ready At Dawn put out something, and it's a first pancake. And it had its problems, and now we can point to those problems. And I think that Ready At Dawn could become, like a really, really great developer. And I'm hopeful to see that, because I think that the order did do so much right. It did a lot wrong, but it did a lot right too. And it was very original, and I love to see that. So that, I think, concludes our thoughts on the Order 1886. And I really, if you can find the game on sale, and a lot of people are saying it's the perfect game to rent because you can beat it in a couple days. I played it in one sitting, but honestly, you should not play this game in one sitting. That is extremely unhealthy because it's going to take you at least 6 hours, probably around 8 to 10. Do not play this game in one sitting. It's disgusting, and you will die if you do.
But what if I'm a disgusting person?
Yeah, I mean, I decided to be disgusting that day. I took off from work. The only reason I got up was to use the bathroom, to pick my sister up from the train station because she was stranded there at 3 a.m. and to eat. But that is not the lifestyle you should be leading.
Do not follow our example, because that was kind of my thing with the game as well.
But I think that the average person with the average person's level of free time, you can beat this game in a couple days to a week. So it is a good game to consider renting if you have a friend that will lend it to you, or if you can get it. I honestly think that the game is worth $35. I think that would be a fair price to pay for the game. So,
I've been seeing it go on sale, particularly Amazon for $30 recently.
Yeah. So if you can pick it up, I do recommend it. I really liked it. I think it was a good game, its problems aside. Yep. And so now we can move into user-submitted questions. To submit a question to the KH-Vids Podcast, all you have to do is fill out the form linked with every episode of the podcast, or send an email to podcast@KH-Vids.net. The questions can be directed towards the host in particular, or the group in general. So the first question comes from Quilligan, or Drew, and this question was actually sent in a couple weeks ago, but I didn't put it on for various reasons, but now I think is great timing to do it. What do you think of Square announcing a new Dissidia game as an arcade title at the Japan Amusement Expo trade show? And it's good timing now because this past couple days we've gotten an absolute like blowout of information about the new Dissidia game.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
I'm really excited.
Yeah, I've never played a Dissidia game before. Of course, I know, like, what they're all about, but, like, I didn't jump on the PSP train until, like, well after the PSP was
the only
dead.
real thing you need to know, the only real reason you really should buy these games...
Final Fantasy characters fighting each other. And you play it with friends, and it's fun.
The only... fan service. This is fan service the game.
Oh,
so,
yes.
Like, that is all the reason I would need for purchasing this.
Yeah. And it looks really nice. I mean, right now it's like this weird question of, is it getting a PS4 port or is it not?
It is.
It is, though. They've been showing PS4 stuff for it. So I'm glad about that, and it will be an arcade title as well, but I doubt it'll make arcade machines outside of Japan. But so hopefully we will see it on the PS4. I think they said like a year after the arcade release they would be looking into putting it on the PS4. So that'll be great, and I'm excited about it. I'm excited actually even to have it on a console, because I think this is the first console Dissidia game. And I play mostly on console, so I don't really play on handheld, so I'm excited for that. In that respect, I'm excited to see what characters they add in. They've shown Y'shtola from Final Fantasy XIV, whom I love.
I'm really glad that they started off with having a 14 representative in the game. Because that made me happy.
Yeah, I mean, of course, Cloud is going to be there. Of course, Lightning is going to be there. But to have Y'shtola as well, I'm really happy about that. I hope Tidus or Yuna makes it in there because they're my faves.
I have a feeling, given that they've said that they have at least 50 characters planned at the moment.
We're going to see a lot of Final Fantasy characters.
I have a feeling that people from the original Dissidia games are going to be in this game.
I hope so.
Terra
is also in there, right? And she was in Final Fantasy Dissidia. She was in both, I think.
Yeah, she was in both.
Yeah.
The first Dissidia game was basically one hero and one villain from each of the main 10.
Yeah.
Because 12 was kind of recent at that point. And so they had Gabranth from 12 and then Shan Todo from 11 in there.
Yeah.
Then Dissidia I still Ducidium I don't know. I don't. Dissidia 2. It included Lightning, Vaughn, Laguna from 8 and Yuna from 10 and Tifa from 7.
Yeah.
So I have a feeling that this game, given that they've said that there are going to be at least 50 characters, that they are going to include probably everybody from the previous Dissidia games in some fashion, because it just just in general, it makes sense to include at least one hero and one villain from
every
each of the main Final Fantasy game.
Yeah.
What really excited me, though, is that they also announced that Ramza from Final Fantasy Tactics was going to be in this game.
Yes.
Which that made me like, okay, so they are branching out into more spin-off things, which is great.
I'm really glad about that too. I have absolutely zero hope of seeing Tactics Advanced in a Dissidia game, but as a big fan of Tactics Advanced, I would love to see it in a Dissidia game.
I'm probably more excited than I should be, because it's really bad that I can't remember the last time I was this excited over something Final Fantasy related.
Right?
I'm just...
I wish that they had done this earlier, honestly. Just because of how Square has handled the Final Fantasy IP and like what's going on with 15, what's been going on with 15 for years, that to throw out a Dissidia game, it does sort of reestablish the goodwill that fans have with Final Fantasy. So I wish that maybe they'd done this a little while ago, but I'm so happy to see it. It's so exciting.
It just opens up so many possibilities. Like, it gets my mind racing, like, ooh, I hope this is in it, or I hope this is like referenced, or just little things like that. Like as you mentioned, you hope Tidus and Yuna are in it, which I'm hoping that too. I'm kind of hoping that Celeste or Setzer from 6 is in it. I'm also hoping I hope there's more actually 14 representation, because there's a lot of great characters in 14 that I would I would love to see in the game in some way.
Yeah,
because
it's exciting because it gets you to look back at like what was great about Final Fantasy and consider like your favorites, because where we are with Final Fantasy right now is that a lot of people have lost a lot of faith in the series, and that's slowly coming back, I think, with 15 and how well that the 15 demo kind of went. But people are still thinking about, like 13, and 13 has a lot of ill will surrounding it, that for a Dissidia game to be announced, you are looking back, you're like, oh man, I loved Tidus from Final Fantasy X, and like you said, like Setzer from Final Fantasy VI, and you're kind of considering the past and what was great about it, and it's kind of, again, like regaining hope in the Final Fantasy series.
I want Balthier to be in this.
Oh, I love Balthier.
Give me Balthier and I will be happy.
Plus it has it's doing like 3 versus 3, right?
Yeah.
So, there's that potential for, like, assists, I think, and a Fran Balthier assist would be amazing.
Yeah, because, like, from what I'm reading about the game is that it is a 3v3 game, where, like, it's literally 3 people on one team, 3 people on the other team.
Yeah.
But I think what I'm reading is that they also have options for, like, 2v2, 1v1.
I'm sure that they would,
like, stuff like that.
Yeah.
What's really interesting about the arcade machine itself is that it's using PS4 hardware.
Yeah.
It is like Sony is helping develop this game, and they're using a custom PS4 to kind of build this game on. And the arcade controller itself has PlayStation buttons on them.
I mean, I've read people upset about that, people that play a lot of arcade games and want, like, the standard layout, but it's also cool that for, like PlayStation fans.
It's interesting because, I mean, the controller, I mean, it's kind of as you said, it's kind of not a standard controller. It's like 2 joysticks that you kind of hold on, and one has an analog stick, and the other one has an analog stick and the face buttons. But yeah, I'm kind of excited just kind of about everything, not only characters, but environments and just little, like, fan service.
Yeah.
Like,
it's always fun to see, like, your old favorites in, like, an HD game, because, like, games like Final Fantasy VI, of course, they're dated at this point, that, to see them, like, rendered out on the PS4, it's exciting. It's fun.
Like, oh my god, they were doing such a tease with showing that Midgar level.
Oh, yeah.
In HD, like, it's a fully realized Midgar, like, level for, the game itself, Battle Arena, but having that with Cloud in Midgar, it was just like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I see what you're doing here, and I'm still not amused about that Final Fantasy VII announcement at PSX.
Oh yeah, that was bullshit. But yeah, so new Dissidia is going to be awesome. The next question is also from Quilligan or Drew, and he asks, whatever your religion is, did you grow up with it, i.e. taught by your parents and such, or did you discover it when you were growing up or when you grew up? So getting personal here. Yeah. I, like a lot of people, was raised in kind of a Roman Catholic environment, because I'm Italian. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure Nick is going to say, like, the exact same thing as me, but I was kind of raised in it. My dad's mother is very religious, but my dad is not religious, and my mom isn't really religious either, but they did kind of keep us in the whole religion program loop thing, just in a way to please their parents, and also because it has its benefits, I guess. But it wasn't really stressed, so it's not like it was met with huge disappointment and anger from my parents when I was like, hey, I'm kind of an atheist. But my grandparents might not be so happy if I told them that. But yeah, so I mean, yeah, I was raised Roman Catholic, but I'm an agnostic atheist, I guess I label myself as, which is atheism for people that don't like commitment. It's atheism for people that want to say, like, well, there's probably not a god, but I'm not saying that there isn't one, and I'm not saying that I'm totally right or wrong, but I don't think
just
that
live.
there is. Yeah.
Just live.
Yeah, so I don't really have a religion.
Yeah, like Cassie, I was also born, I was kind of raised in Roman Catholicism because I am Italian.
Yeah.
Shocking. But I've been like, I would kind of side with kind of how Misty is on this. I wouldn't say I'm atheist, but I do have, like, I guess not doubts, but, like, I guess questions about things. I question things a lot. And so, like, I still have a religious, like, viewpoint on a few things, like in mostly, okay, I shouldn't even say on a few things. The main thing is just I think there may be a god. But besides that, I'm just kind of like whatever about the Catholicism.
This is like the problem. The more time that I spend, like, since being an atheist, the more time that I feel like the whole idea of a god is just so weird and ridiculous. And I'm not saying that to get into fights with anyone or to say, like, you're weird or ridiculous for, like, thinking that there is a god, but, like, just, I used to be kind of like, well, there could be a god, or, like, you know, this idea, you know, it's been universal throughout human history that, you know, maybe there is a possibility, but, like, the more time goes by, the less and less I believe in that.
No,
yeah.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Like,
yeah.
I don't really care about, like, what other people think about that. But, like, I don't know. I'm just kind of like, whatever. I'm not, like, I guess you wouldn't say I'm devout. But, like, yeah, I was born and raised Catholic. I've just kind of stuck with that somewhat just because I never felt a great inclination to just kind of just ignore everything because I never paid too much attention to stuff in the first place. So,
and you, Cal?
I'm a great person.
Well, like you and Nick, my grandparents are Italian. So I guess I'm still being raised because I don't think I'm like all the way raised yet in Roman Catholic, and I go to a Catholic school and all that fun stuff. They might hear me, so I'm just gonna give a nice answer. Well, it's practiced at school, obviously. So, I mean, I don't know. I think it's kind of ingrained in me, but like Nick, I mean, I have my questions that I'd like to have answered.
I could never imagine, like, going to a Catholic school.
I would have been kicked out of Catholic school so quickly.
I feel like I would too. Like,
not that I'm like an amoral person or that I like do shitty things, but I have some very firm viewpoints about things, and if they are challenged, I kind of flare up, and I'm not afraid to defend them. So I do not think I would function well in Catholic school.
That's kind of the same reason why I don't think I would function very well, because like, even despite the fact that I guess you can say I practice Catholicism, there is a lot of things, a lot of viewpoints and things that is very much in contradiction with kind of, I guess, the standard or whatever, you know, the, I guess, supposed viewpoints of what a Catholic should believe. That
just like me as a person, I feel like does not mesh with Catholicism. That I am a bisexual feminist socialist. That these are not really things that Catholic people tend to like. See, that
actually socialism is that's
the thing that Christianity. It has a lot of ideas that are conducive to socialism, you know, like sharing what you have and distributing the wealth and everything and helping the poor. But that isn't really what happens in practice with a lot of Christian people.
I would argue that is more on the Protestant side where that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Catholicism, like, I mean, you had a bunch of Republicans angry at the Pope for saying that the trickle-down economics of Reagan were bullshit. So, like... Yeah, so, I mean, the whole disclaimer on this is that there are so many different varieties of Christianity in every religion ever. So, like, you know, we can't make very good generalizations about it. But, you know, like, I will not tell my grandparents, like, if I was dating another woman, I would not inform my grandparents about that. That would not be family dinner conversation.
Exactly, like, because I'm bisexual too, but I haven't said anything to anybody, so I'm just kind of here like, okay, well, nobody needs to know unless I date a girl, and then maybe they should find out eventually. I mean, you know, that's okay.
The thing is that I already get into battles with my grandparents over family dinner about politics, so I'm just not even going to expand it to, like, moral issues.
See, I can't fight with them because they're not like sick or anything, but they're so old and I feel bad. We don't really talk about anything that like at the dinner table, at least, or at all. So, I mean, if anything was brought up, I'd probably be like, hey, okay, settle down, guys.
That's kind of
or
how
something
it
like that
started, but then my grandpa realized that I could kind of hold my own and that I would
And
continue
he just
to
kept on
fight with
provoking
him.
you?
So he picks fights with me, and he knows that he's doing
That's
it, but they get ugly. And so I now I've adapted the viewpoint of like, I'm not even gonna open the box because I'm just here to have a nice family dinner, go on my way. But it does create
I
problems.
try to not discuss things with family because that just kind of doesn't end well.
We got into a very loud argument at a public place, so that's when I started to realize like this is a problem.
That's great.
Yeah.
That is great. So that's kind of it.
Yeah.
I mean, going back to my school a little bit, I mean, most of the teachers there are pretty old, and obviously they're all in the Catholic school board, so they're all, like, Catholic, but some of them are not so very nice Catholic, and some of them are, a bit homophobic, and I've heard a story about one of the teachers going on about that, and there were a couple of gay students in his class, and I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna get involved, but hearing stuff like that gets me kind of like, why am I in this school?
Well, you
what am I doing here?
Choice.
Yeah, no. Like, my two of my courses for next semester have been canceled, which was Earth Science and Writer's Craft. And I was like, hey, Mom, I want to switch schools. Because I looked at one of the other schools, and they also have a musical theater course and a couple of other things that they're doing over there. So I'm like, maybe we should look at switching schools. And then I brought up the idea of switching to a public school. And she was like, you will go to this school. You will be in this board until your grandparents are dead. Do you understand? And I was just like, okay, never gonna bring it up. I'll be here.
I make fun of public school a lot, but I went to public school.
I went to public school. I've been in public school my whole life, and look how I turned out.
Yeah, I mean, in senior year, I looked into homeschooling because I was very unhappy. It would be nice to be homeschooled, maybe. I mean, I was. It wasn't like a serious thing.
You had reasons.
Yeah, I had other reasons other than the education I was receiving, and public school definitely has its drawbacks, and it. Some of the stereotypes surrounding public school aren't entirely untrue, but I like to make fun of public school. But that's coming from somebody who is going to school to be a teacher and would love to work, I mean, in any school, but a public school. So yeah, public school is laughable.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in public school because I am poor.
Yeah.
I've been in public school.
Because I'm poor and because I probably would have ended up in public school if somebody tried to put me in Catholic school.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. So the last question I'm going to ask comes from Shu, and he asks, if KH-Vids ever completely dies, what will each of you do to fill the void left in your hearts by its disappearance? If the answer is, I wouldn't care, you know where the door is.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. The hard questions.
I was mostly saying wow at that last part.
Yeah, me too. Well, I already had a form that died on me and disappeared from the existence, which was the first one I ever joined, and it was one of the ones I was really attached to because I met all my friends there, and I pretty much moved them all to KH-V now, even though some of them have no idea what Kingdom Hearts is. Which is kind of bad. I mean, I've talked about it enough so they have a basic understanding, so sometimes they'll talk in the general
We have so many
Kingdom
members
Hearts
that
section.
do not give a shit about Kingdom Hearts, and maybe have not even played Kingdom Hearts, so it doesn't matter.
And, like, so it's kind of, if I lost another form, I would be so upset. I would never join another form again, and I would cry a lot. Because, I don't know, like...
Well, forms
the first time it happened, I was just kind of like, oh, okay, well, it was because of these reasons, but I mean, we're doing well here on KH-V, so if we die somehow, I'll be like, okay, maybe it's just wherever I go, it's going to implode, and so I shouldn't go anywhere anymore. So yeah, it would make me very sad.
I mean, it's interesting, because I've been on KH-Vids for so long now, over 9 years. And
I still can't believe I'm going on 10.
That's a big percentage of my life that I've spent on KH-Vids, and especially having been on the staff for the majority of that time, like, almost 9 years that I've been on the staff team, I've been a part of this site for so long that it feels like part of who I am, and that so much of what I do like revolves around this site. I mean, doing a weekly podcast about it, that, you know, like if KH-Vids died, I would be really sad about that, and I would do everything in my power to prevent that. And I mean, yeah, I would probably join another forum and kind of set up base there, I guess. Just because,
let's start our own forum somewhere else.
I mean, that's the thing that, like Nick said, forums kind of are a dying breed, but you also have these people that have spent years and years and years using forums, and they can't really see moving on to something else. That, you know, like, forums are kind of being replaced by, like, social media, you know, like Facebook and Twitter and Tumblr and Reddit and all of these different discussion-based sites. But for people that have been on forums for so long, a lot of them feel like you can't match the forum experience of having, like, because, you know, you have...
I don't care what people say, you can't.
Yeah, because, you know, you have quotes and, like, it's very... The only competitor I can see to it is really Reddit. But even Reddit doesn't really have a lot of the... It's so segmented that, you know, it's different than forums. But forums, you know, like, for discussions, you're not going to find anything else. And I think even for community, that, you know, I spend a lot of time on Tumblr, but it's so hard to connect and communicate with people through it that that's not really what it's designed for. Forums are designed for having in-depth discussions and for communicating between users. And no platform, I think, has really done that as well as forums. That I would look for another forum to join. I wouldn't just, you know, like, go and, like, maybe be more active on Tumblr or something, as if that were possible. But yeah, so I would definitely look for another forum to join, and I would like to be on the staff of another website, because, you know, I do think that there is a lot that I do on KHV that it would leave a very big void in my life, and I think it would be a waste for me to not continue with it. You know, like, I do like to do design stuff and code stuff, and I like to do the podcast. I love doing the podcast. I would definitely look into, you know, like, doing another podcast that I would continue kind of the KH-Vids spirit, I guess, and I would definitely keep in contact with a lot of people with KH-Vids, because it's interesting. Again, like, being here for so long, I kind of see, like, waves, I guess, of people that, like, there's like a group of people that are, you know, like, really popular, and, like, the people that you see again and again, and then they kind of tend to, like, move on, and then another wave of people comes on, and there are people that, you know, kind of, like, outlast that, and people that come back and leave and come back and leave and all of that. And, you know, so not saying that it's just, like, totally just waves and waves of people, like, leaving and then they're replaced and everything, but you do see, like, waves of people, and I've kept in contact with people that have left long ago, and, you know, I still keep in touch with them, the biggest being my best buddy Orange, whom I love dearly. So, you know, I would still keep in touch with you guys, because I like you guys, and I think that, you know, yeah,
I feel so special.
I would hope that, you know, like, as we all kind of move on to different websites and different projects, that, you know, people would sort of keep up with each other in a way. Like, again, like, it was weird. We were talking about this just a couple of days ago in the Spam Zone community thread, that, like, somebody, I'm not going to get into specifics, but somebody posted, you know, like, something very personal about their life, and they're like, I don't really know if anybody cares or whatever, but I feel like it's not just a website anymore, that these are people that have spent years together, and that, you know, like, I've known these people for years, that, like, I want to know, you know, what's going on in their real life and keep up with them, and, you know, like, provide support where I can and listen to them, because it's not just a website, it's like a community of people. And so I feel like if the website were to go away, that community of people would stay together. You know, I follow a bunch of you on Tumblr, and I would keep up with you like that, and I would hope that, you know, like, if I ever moved on to a different podcast after the KH-Vids podcast died, not that that's going to happen anytime soon in the foreseeable future, but I would hope that, you know, like, some of the regular podcast listeners would maybe give that podcast a listen, and that kind of thing. So, I mean, I don't think it can die, as long as people, you know, still keep in touch with each other and still, you know, have memories of it.
Exactly. I mean, like, what you were saying before about the waves, I don't really see, because there is really nothing like forums, and even just narrowing it down to Kingdom Hearts, there are maybe 4 Kingdom Hearts forums that I know, not including this one. So I feel like as long as Kingdom Hearts keeps going, we're still all going to be here. And I feel like people are still going to be using forums, because on social media, there's so many people, but on forums, it's like you said, it's this community of people. So some people like that there's a lot of people on that follow them on Twitter, and they can interact with that kind of small group, but it's not like a forum where you can have these long conversations and kind of situate yourself and stuff like that, because there aren't that many more members, I guess.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I don't feel like it will die out as long as people still know about them, that forums exist and things like that.
Yeah, and I mean, again, one of the big drawbacks of Reddit is that, like, I think that it is a competitor to forums in that you can have kind of lengthy discussions, but you don't have that user interaction that, like, I can go into a Kingdom Hearts thread on KH-Vids and see familiar faces, whereas if I go into, the Kingdom Hearts subreddit, which is substantially larger, and there are a lot of people just kind of passing through, there's not that same community that's built, I feel. And that's one thing that I really love about forums, and that's, again, another benefit of like a site like KH-Vids, that, we are centered around the Kingdom Hearts discussion. That's how a lot of us got started on the site, talking about Kingdom Hearts. But, we expand outside of that also. We talk about music and movies, and there are role plays, and there's a spam zone, and there are artists, and we're all over the place. That,
we just talked about The Order.
Yeah, we spent an episode on a podcast that is theoretically focused on Kingdom Hearts, talking about The Order 1886, that, there's that recognizability of, like, users, and you're connecting not just about Kingdom Hearts, but about other things as well. And you can, go into a thread about Kingdom Hearts, or you can go into a thread about some band and see the same people. And that's nice, and you don't see that on other social sites.
The only other forum I really regular besides Kingdom Hearts, Vids.Net, the only other forum I really go to a lot is NeoGAF. And NeoGAF is kind of a unique in terms of forums because it is it's incredibly large community.
Yeah.
But because of how the forum is and how forums are in general, you still get that sense of, oh, I know this person.
Yeah.
Because I've seen him talking around, and you get the sense of knowing that they're part of this community because you see them and you recognize them, and you sort of build up who they are based on kind of how you see them post around.
Yeah. And that's one thing I love about forums. Sorry to interrupt you, but like when I first joined KH-Vids, like I lurked a lot. Everybody lurks before they start posting.
You're a little kid.
Yeah, I was a little kid, and it was so interesting to see these different personas and kind of like get this impression of who they are based on just the posts that I was seeing, and then to go ahead and like interact with these people and get to know them. That's something that I feel like forums exclusively do, and that was so interesting for me. But go on.
Yeah, so like if KH-Vids ever died, I'd probably keep in contact with the people I've kind of come to know over the years. But I would probably do a lot of my other forum would probably just be NeoGAF at that point, which, I mean, in some respects, that's kind of not too weird because it is still a forum and it has, a community attached to it, and it has all these other kind of things kind of going on for it, but it'd still be not right in a way.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I've been on NeoGAF almost as long as I've been on Kingdom Hearts Vids. I've been on NeoGAF since 2009, I want to say. So about... actually, that's not as much. That's like... I keep on thinking 2009 was like yesterday.
I still think it's 2012, so...
Yeah, it's 2009. That means I joined NeoGAF about 5 years after I joined KH-Vids. Which... That... Okay. But yeah, so it'd probably be the place I'd find myself frequenting a lot, which I guess I kind of already do because I kind of depend on NeoGAF for news. Mm-hmm. So I'm just kind of refreshing the page every day and every hour and every second. But yeah, it would still be weird because I would still keep in contact with, people I've known on the site for a number of reasons. I would hope people would know, but yeah, I'm not sure. It would be weird for me to try and join another forum because I've always been sort of weird about joining communities and kind of getting involved and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I'd probably just stick to NeoGAF because they have a healthy community and a lot of people. And what's really neat, the one thing I really like about NeoGAF, at least compared to a lot of other forums, is that there are basically two sections. There you have a gaming section and you have an off-topic section. And I think that is one of the most brilliant ideas for a forum, because it doesn't allow people to kind of find their particular section that they really like. Like, I mean, we sort of see this on Kingdom Hearts vids a bit, but like people mostly post in the spam zone. Like that's kind of what people do.
It's true.
that's just kind of what people do. But like if you get into like bigger things, like you get into like this is the like role playing section, or this is the like gaming section, or this is the Kingdom Hearts section, and stuff like that. For our forum, it makes sense because of how our community is, but having only these two sections allow people to not segregate off into their like own little section where they don't really post outside of it.
Yeah.
So it allows people of anybody to just kind of everybody is jumping in on this thing, and so you get to know people without there being this like, I guess, segregated off part of it.
Yeah.
And on the same note, they kind of mitigate. They kind of encourage the idea of a community as well, because games have their like when games get their like news release and all this other stuff. Their rule is new news, new topic. So anytime there's new news about anything, there is a new topic, and if you ever want to discuss anything, there's just make a topic and stuff like that. But they do have official like this is the official games topic. So, like Kingdom Hearts has a official like topic in the community section, and everybody posting there you can generally assume they are Kingdom Hearts fans.
Yeah, and you start to kind of recognize people within that,
and you start to recognize people within that community. Yeah. So you do still get that sort of closed knit community, but you're still part of this larger community without there really being a huge like division line.
Yeah.
Between the two, which I really enjoy, because then you get people who are like, oh, you're part of Kingdom Hearts gaff, or you're part of Persona gaff, or you're part of NBA gaff, or you're part of basketball. I mean, you're part of like football gaff, or whatever it is that you happen to be a part of. You kind of identify with these other people without actually having like a closed knit community, but still kind of emulating it in some weird way. I don't know how they make this work, but they do.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of like also, I think it has its benefits too on KHV having the separate sections, because it lets kind of sub-communities form around those sections. Like, I know for years, like, I rolled with, like, the graphic art crowd, and, like, I was really active in the music section for a while. So, it's interesting. Forums create such interesting, like, phenomenons, I think, and I like it. But yeah, and, I mean, one thing also that I have to add to this is just the Kingdom Hearts fandom and community I really love. That... I'm a fan of a lot of things, of course. Like, I'm a fan of Mass Effect and Star Wars and everything, but nothing has ever quite struck me kind of like Kingdom Hearts, and that there are so many Kingdom Hearts fan sites out there that offer so much, and that there's such a focus on kind of, I guess, showcasing the amazing things that people do within the fandom, kind of showcasing people's fan art and fan fiction and fan videos and just everything, and I love that about the Kingdom Hearts community, and I have such positive feelings about the Kingdom Hearts community that, like, if I also love joining new forums, which I think separates me from Nick and Cal a little bit. I join a lot of forums, and I am on a lot of forums. None, of course, ever as active as I am on KHV, and I kind of, like...
Of course.
Yeah, and then, like, I kind of spend, like, a couple months on one forum, and then I'm kind of on another one for another time. KHV is, like, the constant, though, but... like,
leave a digital footprint.
Yeah. Well, I also think it's important, too, to kind of be friendly with other people in, like, the Kingdom Hearts realm. But like I love the Kingdom Hearts fandom, and it's something that I've wanted to do a podcast episode on before, and something that seems like it's going to be more likely because I've had two people that run really, really popular Kingdom Hearts Tumblr communities join on KHV, and they've been active on KHV, but also PM me and be like, I'd love to do like a podcast episode with you guys and do like kind of a joint thing. And I love that like cooperation that you get. I feel like you don't really see that with other fan communities, and maybe I just haven't been like big enough into anything else that I've really gotten involved in this, but I love that cooperation and how, there is competition between the sites and everything, but I think that it's offset by that feeling of like partnership and everybody, like coming together just in love of this series. And I really, really like that. So, like, if KH-Vids went down, I have no doubt that I would stay within the Kingdom Hearts community.
I have, okay, actually, there's one side I haven't joined, but I have kind of bad blood with other Kingdom Hearts community sites. I shouldn't even say that because it happened like almost a decade ago and nobody even cares anymore. But yeah, I mean, it's weird. I've never really joined community like fan sites before outside of Kingdom Hearts.
That's the thing, though. I feel like other like game series don't really have fan sites the way that Kingdom Hearts does.
Like, I feel the Final Fantasy.
Well, yeah, I kind of connect the two in a way,
yeah,
but like Final Fantasy does. But like otherwise, you know, like Mass Effect, I don't see big Mass Effect fan sites.
Yeah, like I see, it's really weird when you start talking about modern kind of games.
Yeah.
Because they came out in an era where forums were kind of on the down low.
That's true.
So they would
have like a big presence on like Reddit and like Tumblr and everything, but they wouldn't have like fan sites bringing up. So maybe it is a product of just like when Kingdom Hearts came out, it was a thing to have fan sites. You know, you didn't have like Twitter where you just got the stream of Kingdom Hearts news. You would have to go to a Kingdom Hearts fan site and see the news. So maybe it is just an antiquated concept, but I also love that about the Kingdom Hearts series.
I know. Yeah, I'm trying to think of other fan things. Like the only other like. I'm talking about NeoGAF again. The only other I'm not really that involved with the Kingdom Hearts community on NeoGAF. For one reason or another, I don't know why. I just never really clicked with that. But I am kind of I kind of post a bit in the Persona community thread and stuff, and I've gotten to know some great people there. And there's some really great like artists and musicians and just kind of a little bit of everybody in there. And there's a few other communities that I've kind of joined on GAF that aren't even game related. They're just like, hey, we all have this common interest or this common, you know, problem or common whatever, and we just kind of banded together, and now I guess we're a community. But yeah, it there isn't really much. I haven't really experienced much fan sites outside of the Kingdom Hearts series, which it's interesting. Kind of think about it.
Yeah. I want to do an episode about Kingdom Hearts fandom and Kingdom Hearts community, so, I mean, look out for that. And we spent a lot of time on user-submitted questions today, but I think that's okay because we were doing a Spoilercast, so I want there still to be content for people that don't care about the content of the Spoilercast, but that still want to hear from us this week.
They need to hear our voices.
Yes, I mean, we were off last week. Oh, and I want to apologize, too, for us being off last week. I woke up that morning and, like, I couldn't talk, so, I mean, that would prevent us from doing the podcast.
I get this, like, almost frantic text from you. Yeah. Like, did you find anybody?
Well, because I would have, if we had, like, a lot of guests lined up, I would have said, do the episode without me. But I knew you were having trouble finding guests, so I was like, if you didn't find guests...
Would you really be fine doing an order podcast without you?
It would be difficult. But it also would be interesting to listen to... I listen back to episodes. I don't know if that's creepy or weird or if you guys do that, but I do listen back to episodes. So it would be interesting to listen to an episode of the KH-Vids podcast without me on it and reply to it, like, as a listener. So it would be a neat reversal, but I would definitely be sitting there like listening to it like, but wait, I need to say something. So we were off last week. And then just to mention community news and projects, this isn't anything big, but it is a feature that we added to the site thanks to Nick and that I'm really excited about. Again, one of the like great things about forums is that you have a user profile. And on probably every website today, you have to select your gender, or you don't have to, but you can specify your gender. Yeah, and most sites do like the whole like male, female, or like a third like unspecified option, which is what we've had for years, and that I've never really been happy about, because if you know about, you know, like me being a feminist, that is a binary system and one that excludes people. So what we had Nick implement is a lot like what Facebook implemented, like a year ago now, but Facebook has had it for a while, and that's kind of where when Facebook put it in, I was like, there is now a reason for us to put real effort towards this on KHV. And I forgot about it for a while, and then I asked Nick to do it. But
always your willing slave.
Yeah. But so now what it is that it's kind of a fill-in-the-blank system, where you write in whatever your gender identity is, and you can specify your preferred pronouns as well. And it's a little thing. And people kind of replied to it. Some people were a little disappointing in their replies to it, and I'm not going to go into specifics or anything about that, but just that, like, oh, why are you adding this little feature? Like, why are you making a big deal out of this? It's not a big deal. It's a little feature tweak that I thought I'd, draw some attention to, just because there's, like,
if it makes anybody feel it took me, like, an hour to do this. Like...
It's not something that we're pretending we put, like, a huge amount of effort into, or is that some selling point to our website? It's not. It's just a little thing that I think could make a difference to some big difference to some people, and that does not make any difference at all to most people. Or not to most people, but just that it's so hard to explain.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. It's just that it's for the people who care about it means a lot to them, and the people who don't, it doesn't really. It's like
it doesn't affect them at all. And I thought I'd post a thread about it just to draw attention to it, and because we've had no Kingdom Hearts news for weeks now, and the front page cannot just be podcast posts.
But can it not really?
Yeah. But it's just a more inclusive system, and we do have big changes and updates coming to the site that we've been working on for a long time, and you'll know.
Believe us, we aren't lying.
Yeah, like, you'll know when those things are announced. But this is just a nice little thing that was important to me to add, and that we have now. So, it's a fill-in-the-blank system. So, instead of it just saying male or female, it'll say something other than that for whatever you fill in with the gender field. And, of course, the preferred pronouns, which, honestly, like, I'm surprised that this has not been implemented in some way or another on forums in general, because there's always that problem of, like, everybody assumes that people on the internet are dudes, and this is kind of an older problem. It's not really anymore, but like in the days when I was first joining forums, everybody just assumed that everyone was male, and you would have to like decide whether you wanted to comment back on somebody like, actually, I'm a girl, which is a whole other discussion in and of itself. But I'm like surprised that any kind of pronoun function hasn't been integrated. But yeah, so the pronouns are integrated where, like, if you're browsing through posts, you can hover over the gender thing and you'll see somebody's pronouns, or it'll show up on member cards and user profiles. So yeah, it's a more inclusive system, and it was something that, again, was important to me to add, but probably won't affect your life if you don't need
and
it
again,
to.
Was a simple thing to add.
It's a simple little feature, but I just wanted to talk about it here too, because technically it is a community news.
It is news.
Yeah.
I'm so glad for the pronoun thing though, because I get everybody's gender so confused. So now that they have the pronoun thing there, I'm just like, okay, I don't need to worry about calling this person like she by accident, and then they're like, LOL, I'm a boy, and I've known this person for like a year and I still can't get it right, so something like that. It's nice.
Yeah. And like, again, talking about kind of the disappointing responses to us adding this feature, if you don't care about people's gender identity, if you're one of those people that think this is all like Tumblr made up social justice bullshit, then just think of it as this is what this person wants to be called, so like just go ahead and do it. With the pronoun thing, like if you have to refer to someone and you're not sure how to do it, just go with what they ask you to do. That's just, I think, being a decent human being. So
it's not difficult.
No, it's not. We made it so that it is not difficult. Yeah. So that is what I wanted to talk about with community news and projects. I don't know if you guys have anything to mention, but
Game of the month for April, Mortal Kombat X. Which, oh my god. Like, okay, Mortal Kombat is, well, Mortal Kombat.
Yes.
Oh my god, the fatalities in this particular game are so damn outrageous that
I don't follow Mortal Kombat in, like, any way, but apparently there's a character in Mortal Kombat called Cassie Cage, which she has an amazing fatality. I saw that on Tumblr the other day, and I was gonna watch it anyway, just because, my name is Cassie, and, like, that is very close to like my actual full name. So I was excited for that in that respect, but seeing that fatality, I was like, wow, this is awesome. I'm not going to buy Mortal Kombat or anything, but that was really cool.
I was going to mention that particular fatality.
Yeah. And I don't want to describe it because I want somebody to like go and look up Cassie Cage fatality Mortal Kombat X and just go into it blind and see it because it's
just I'm not going to describe it either, but some of the I'll leave that for the rest. I'll say this. I'll tell you after the podcast because there's some particular points about it that I found.
No, I know what you're talking about.
No, but there are particular points about that thing. Is great. But yeah, I mean, they Mortal Kombat one. Not really a lot else coming out in April, so that was not a surprise in the least. Mm-hmm. Broken Age is also getting released, which
I'm excited for Broken Age.
Yeah, I am too, actually. I've been kind of excited about it, and I've just never had the inclination to buy such a story-focused game when not all the episodes were out, which is really weird for me to say considering Life is Strange, but anyway, I'm glad that that's finally getting like a full release, and plus it's coming out on the PS4 this month and the Vita, so I'm kind of really happy about that. The other game that sort of was up there was Titan Souls, which that is an actually really interesting story for how that game got made. They actually recently released a video that kind of detailed how that game was made, and it was originally just a throwaway game jam game. Well, I shouldn't say throwaway. No games that are made for a game jam are throwaway. They can always be really interesting to play, but it was like a very quick game jam game that they just had this basic idea concept out, and like 2-3 years later they actually like fleshed it out into this full-fledged like downloadable game, and it looks really cool. And I played the game jam version because it's free if you want to try it out, and it's fun. Like it's like it's a 2D pixel game, so I guess that will probably turn some people off for some reason, but it's an action game that's kind of really fun. So you should at least look into it.
Yeah, as you also want to mention, this month's PlayStation Plus games, they included a game called Never Alone, which I tried on a whim last night, not really knowing anything about it. It's phenomenal. Like, it is a great game.
Yeah, it is a great game.
Yeah, it basically, I mean, it's a great game in itself, but it's also highlighting elements of the Inuit culture, which incredible. Oh my god!
Yeah. I believe whatever foundation is that kind of for Inuit culture and stuff like that, they actually provided funds to have this game made.
Right. I didn't get a chance to look into it because I played like half of it last night, and so I didn't really like get a chance to look into it. But it's clear that it was made like, if not by Inuit people, they were involved in the making of the game. So like that, it's just amazing. So
yeah, I've been actually wanting to play because I came out late last year, and I just for one reason or another I just didn't really have money or to buy it. And since it came out in Plus, I've been wanting to play, but I haven't turned on my PS4 in like almost a week now. Yeah. So, but yeah, that is a game I would, even though I haven't played it, I've heard other people speak really highly of it, and I would.
Yeah, so if you're a PlayStation Plus subscriber and you need something quick to play for a couple hours this month, definitely check out Never Alone. I'm gonna plug it like that.
Besides that, that's kind of it for April. Such a weird month.
I was gonna quote T.S. Eliot, but that would get me on a rant about T.S. Eliot, so...
But we would love to hear that.
Well...
I mean, see, I should say I would love to hear that. I'm not sure. There's the
stanza in The Wasteland. I think it's actually the first stanza. April is the cruelest month, and a lot of people post that when April starts, missing the point of that stanza. I mean, The Wasteland is it's nonsense the first time you read it, and I don't understand The Wasteland totally. I did it in a course, and I really like The Wasteland, but I don't blame anybody for not understanding The Wasteland. But it drives me crazy when people quote that April is the cruelest month thing, because the way people that are quoting it misses a lot of the ironic function of it.
It's not a misquote, but it's like
it's like a misquote, because you're missing the point that he's not saying April is the cruelest month because that he's putting spring, which is normally something so positive in poetry, in a negative light in a kind of ironic way, because The Wasteland is about hopefulness, and the April is the cruelest month thing, like saying that spring gets you so hopeful, and it's cruel because that hope is inevitably going to be dashed, but he loves that hope too. And it's really important for me that people understand that meaning when they're quoting The Wasteland, because that's not, people are misusing it. It gets to me. But yeah, so mini T.S. Eliot rant over. But yeah, so that about concludes episode number 87 of the KH-Vids podcast. We did a spoilercast about the Order 1886 and also did quite a bit at the end for everybody else to enjoy. So I'm happy about that, because I think that's what we should be doing with spoiler casts. So it's going to end up being a longer episode, so deal. You can participate in the KH-Vids podcast, like I said before, by submitting a question to the KH-Vids podcast. You can submit it to be a guest on the KH-Vids podcast by filling out the form linked with every episode of the podcast. All you need is a Skype account, a microphone, and headphones, and we would love to have you. You can submit a topic to the KH-Vids podcast by the sticky in the podcast section, and you can suggest spoiler casts through that. So if there's a game that you just finished or a movie that you just watched that you really want to talk about, submit it through the topic submission form. And of course, you can always just leave us a comment on every podcast thread. Let us know your thoughts on the episode and your answers to our user submission last-minute questions. We'd love to hear from you, and I'm pretty good about replying to everyone, so do that.
I've been getting
please.
better.
Yeah. Yeah, so thank you all for listening, and have a Kingdom Hearts day.